Hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to class. Today we're going to do a couple of forward bends that can be suitable for those who are big in the abdomen and thick in the waist and perhaps large in the chest. Before we begin, if you find this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to start with Adho Mukha Virasana, which is the downward facing hero pose. And in Iyengar yoga, we most commonly practice that instead of balasana, which is the child's pose. In child's pose, the knees are together. And of course, if the abdomen is big, having the legs together, trying to fold forward, can be very challenging. So in Adho Mukha Virasana, we have the knees apart. We're going to use a bolster between the buttocks and the heels, and that's really only for those who have problematic knees. If the knees are capable of bending well, then buttocks can actually sit on the heels. But if we come down onto our knees, rather than having the buttocks go all the way down to the heels, if that's a real problem for you, then you can use a bolster here between the buttocks and the heels. Perhaps some rolled up blankets if you don't have a bolster. But you'll note I've got the knees wide. So I could take my knees as wide as the mat. I've still got the big toes touching, and the space between the thighs is ideally then adequate to allow for that larger waist and abdomen as we come forward. And we're going to move forward to a chair. Now, we could do it in a restful manner by bringing the forearms onto the front of the seat and resting the forehead on the forearms. Or we could be a little more active. We could potentially reach the arms through the chair. Perhaps we need to push the chair a little further forward and bring the forehead onto the front of the seat. We want to be mindful that as the hips are descending, they're moving back and down. We're not wanting the hips to come forward, and we're certainly not wanting to concave the lower back. We want to feel that the navel can draw back towards the back abdominal wall, and the lower back is long and broad. So if you're being active in the arms, you reach the arms through, straighten the elbows, palms face each other. Allowing the buttocks to descend, tailbone descend, and feeling into the lengthening of the armpit chest. Sides of the chest long, sides of the waist long. And we'll make our way up. If knees are even more problematic and it's difficult to even bring the buttocks onto a bolster, then we can bring in a second chair so we can sit on the chair. I'm sitting on the chair facing the other chair with the bolster, ready to support the chest. Now, if possible, we bring the bolster to support the upper aspect of the abdomen. So we can potentially take the bolster all the way down to the navel, and it can depend then on how large the abdomen or the breasts or the chest may be as to whether that's prohibitive. But when you come forward, you can have the feet just a little wider than the mat. I've got my toes, balls of the feet off the mat, my heels on the mat. I want to accommodate the width of the rib cage, the abdomen, the waist as I come forward, and I bring the chair in close enough that it's supporting the bolster as the bolster is potentially supporting the upper abdomen and the chest. If the chest feels too large, the upper abdomen too large, the bolster's preventing you from coming forward, then you can bring the bolster further forward. Now again, it can be done restfully with the forearms underneath the forehead. If the shoulders have problems in bringing the arms forward like this, you could potentially bring the forearms down onto the seat of the chair on either sides of your bolster, and whether you turn your head in one direction or you put a blanket here for the head, perhaps just a blanket for the forehead to have the forehead resting on. If you want the arms to be more active in this, you could take a belt, make that your shoulder width, put it around the wrists, and then as you reach the arms forward, you can support the forearms on the top of the seat, and then head can descend. The wrists are pushing out against the belt so that the elbows are straightening. Upper sternum forward, thoracic spine in. And then you can come out of the pose as you're ready. We're going to do Paschimottanasana, which is a seated forward bend. We'll sit on the height of a bolster and we'll have a chair in front of us to work towards. So if we sit buttocks on the bolster, and let's take the legs on either sides of the chair. So we've got space between the thighs for the abdomen, and it's not getting squashed onto the thighs as if we were bringing the legs together. That's more the classical presentation of the pose. But here we activate the legs. We press the thighs down, we grip the kneecaps, feel the quadriceps are working. We don't want to let the legs be lax and roll out. The inner thighs are rolling down. Now, we could potentially be restful here and bring the forearms onto the seat of the chair, forward onto the forearms. And of course, that does require some mobility, some flexibility in the hamstrings and the hips. If you do feel quite stiff, perhaps you sit more upright, holding the seat of the chair, lifting the sternum, front body long. And you can work towards moving forward. Perhaps the hands reach to the arms of the chair. You go on lifting the front body up. And if you feel like being more active in the pose, you can walk your hands further up to the very top of the chair, and that will bring you further forward. But as you come further forward, keep the breastbone, the upper breastbone well lifted, and that requires drawing the lower spine, lumbar spine in, which involves the rotation of the pelvis. Pelvis needs to roll forward to bring the lumbar spine in to help lift the upper sternum. And you look forward to encourage the breastbone to lift. And you're also wanting to feel this thoracic region. Can that move in rather than pull back? Thoracic spine in as the sternum lifts up. And depending on your flexibility as to whether you wish to challenge yourself by sliding the chair further forward, reaching the arms further forward, folding more at the hips. But you'll note with the legs apart, there's space for a larger abdomen, a larger waist, and a larger chest. You could still be active here with your arms, but bring the forehead onto the seat of the chair. Go on pressing the thighs down strongly. If the shoulders don't like this movement, the hands could be down, but keep the elbows out so that encourages armpit chest to lengthen forward. As you come out of the pose, then you raise the head up, come to sit up, and pause. Hopefully that gave you a couple of ideas about how to work with your body if you are challenged when it comes to some of the poses that involve deep hip flexion. if you do have a larger waist or a larger abdomen or chest. And if there are problems with the knees, especially when it comes to kneeling, I have a video on my website in my video library, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au, and it specifically talks about the knees for Virasana and Supta Virasana, how we can approach the use of props to help us there. I'll put the link in the description box below. And you can start with the 7-day free trial. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me. For more in-depth teaching, check out the video library on my website, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. The link is in the description box below.